Quais perguntas o investidor precisa fazer para um empreendedor que ainda não tem um negócio pronto, tem apenas uma ideia? Eu sou Augusto Tons, investidor anjo, e hoje conversei com um empreendedor que tem um background, tem uma experiência no ramo científico, de pesquisa, e conversamos sobre a ideia dele. Então, como investidor, quais são as perguntas que devem ser feitas para analisar um negócio como este? Fique agora com Pitch Analysis. The idea is for us to identify common interest.
Okay.
Great. So, what I want to do now is to have you presented to me the idea. I'm not sure if you have a pitch deck.
No, I do not have pitch deck because this project which I'm thinking to start is it is quite unusual, and currently I'm working on a few other related projects, and after them I would like to start this one. And now I just want to ask your opinion. Does this project might work? So I might introduce you the idea, and you might be interested, and we even might later start working together on that idea. So
Okay, so let me just, before you start, I'd like to make a short introduction of myself. So I'm Augusto Tonza. I'm an angel investor, and I analyze pitches in order to see if I would be able to invest or not. You are bringing a different perspective right now. You are not presenting your pitch. You will present your idea in order to check if I would be able to evaluate it in a way that it would be good to invest, in order to see if it would be good for the market, if that would be a good business going forward. Is that correct?
yes, and maybe you also would be interested in. I don't say that right now I'm looking for investors. I'm just might be looking for people who want to join this. For instance, like you said, you are an investor and you know the investing world, and I'm not investor. I'm scientist, and I work with viruses. I work with drug delivery problem. So I'm from quite a bit different world, and I don't know. I have a proposal. Not a proposal, an idea, which I would like to share. So that's it.
Great.
So can I share it now, or you just want to say something more?
No, you can share already. So
Okay.
tell me your idea.
Well, idea is quite unusual, because now if you might think what is the most crucial problem today, and I would say that the most important and the most achievable problem that we can achieve right now is to find a solution of how to deliver drugs into the cells. Why it is so important? For instance, we have a lot of discoveries. I don't know how much you're aware about these discoveries, but for instance, RNA interference, transcriptional gene regulation, CRISPR space, when you can edit genome, and so on. So these technologies in genetics are very powerful. However, we cannot apply these powerful tools in medicine. And there is only one reason why we cannot do that. And that reason is that we need to deliver relatively large particles into the cells. And to do that, we need a new technology to achieve that. And currently, the scientists from all over the places working on that project, and they trying to tackle this problem. And I think, in my opinion, it will be solved very, 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 very fast. And this idea is currently it is not clear who will solve it and when it will be solved. But if we can solve that idea and put the patent on it, we could practically have any cure for most of the diseases. I won't say any disease, but for most of the diseases. So the idea is to get some investment from people who could support more research on this topic, and to find that solution, and after that, then the solution is found to have a patent for it. So basically, this is it. Well, I'm scientist, and I'm working on this or similar ideas about 10 years, and I have published several good articles in very prestigious scientific journals such as Trends in Biotechnologies, Trends in Biochemical Sciences, Journal of Controlled Release, and so I'm quite aware of what is happening now in the scientific community, and I think now it is the time when someone will find that missing piece, how to solve that problem, and it will definitely change a whole pharmacy. We will not have such drugs as we know now, because we will be able to deliver specifically larger particles which could activate very, very powerful mechanisms in our cells. So we can cure such diseases like cancer, like Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and other diseases which are not curable at this moment. So what I am thinking, for instance, let's say it's possible, and what I'm thinking is to find at least 20 scientists, top-level scientists in the world, to collect their ideas how we can approach this problem, how much money they need, and prepare the initial plan for that. To prepare that plan, and once the plan is prepared, it would be possible to find some investors to help to achieve that plan. But this plan, well, how to say, it is, for instance, it is only initial plan. Let's say when we start and we, for instance, do some research, and then we find that no, this research is bad. We can adjust the money and do more research on other topic. So we have some, in this case, we would have some agility to manipulate the funds. And now what is happening? You, for instance, if you try some idea, and you will, after a few months or few years, you know that this idea will not work. However, you still have to finish it. For instance, when you get a grant, and you have to finish that idea, you have to publish articles and share the results. So this approach, current approach to get a grant to do the research is not very flexible. So that's pretty much it about what I want to achieve. Maybe you have some questions or some comments.
Yes, I have a few comments, and I'd like to present to you the investor perspective. How the investors will receive and think on your idea and on your proposal, on your possible business. When an investor analyzes a pitch, and in your case the presentation of the idea, the first thing that will come to our mind is the potential of the business. If you are presenting an idea that is clear opportunity, an opportunity in the market, that people will require the product or the service that you want to provide to the society, and there's a good perspective of future, they will be interested. So in this case, you are presenting a possible solution that is able to grow, that is able to cause a huge impact in society, and that there is a very good potential to help people and solve lives. So the important thing here is the first thing that you should present to investor and that the investor will analyze is the potential of the idea, which seems to be good. You seems to have presented the potential of the idea in a way that makes us interested in knowing more about the idea. So first thing is the idea a potential product or service? Yes, it seems so. The next step for us to analyze is, okay, so it has a good potential. However, how it would be implemented? And this part, it should be presented in the business plan that you mentioned that is under construction, that is not completely developed. So in order to investors be able to make a decision, the plan and the ability to implement the activities required to make the business possible needs to be clear. So we need to identify how are you gonna get there? How are you gonna transform your industry? Or how are you gonna get the clients? How are you gonna make the product works and show the people that it works? And you are basing your project and idea on a required study. So you are saying to investors that you need their help, you need money to study a little bit more about a possible alternative to cause an impact. So it's a thing that the investor would require to understand in a deeper level of detail, because the risk associated with these projects is much higher than the typical ones. Because when we analyze business that are already in place, that are being tested in the market, we have one risk, one type of risk. And when we are investing in ideas, in scientific projects, the risk associated with this investment is much higher. If the risk is higher, you need to consider that we must have a higher potential, a higher return on investment, because when we associate risk with return, if we have on one side a very huge risk, we need to have a very huge return associated with that. So you need to be able to demonstrate the potential of the idea in the return side as well. You need to present an expected investment required, how much money it would require, an idea of the money required, and an idea of the money that it could make investors to receive afterwards. So in your plan, you should to bring this information, because investors should analyze risk and return. If they see that there's a huge risk, they will be able to invest if it has a high return associated. If there's a huge risk on one hand and a relative low return, they will not invest. So it's one of the aspects that investors should consider when investing, and they will consider. So you need to be able to demonstrate that for them. In the plan that you're gonna build, you need to bring those aspects and those characteristics. Another point that I want to comment is related to the team that you are or you want to build or you have already. So if you are gonna work by yourself, you need to make it clear. If you have a team that's already working on the project, make it clear, because it's very important for investors to analyze teams. If you present a team of experts that are very good, that has a good reputation, they have credentials, and they are seen to make it work, to make a business work, or to reach the results that the investor would require, they would be more likely to invest on your idea than if you present a team that doesn't have such expertise and characteristics. If you don't have a team yet, you need to be able to present who you believe would make sense to have in the team to make it work. So if you are working by your own, you need to present yourself, you need to say why I should invest in you and in your idea. And it's very important and critical for investors, because in this stage, in the stage that you are right now, investors will have not much to analyze related to the market, to the facts that has happened in the market, because there's no market, there's no product yet. So they need to be able to trust in you. So you need to convince them that you are a good bet, because in this stage it's a bet. We need to have a good view of what's the possible future going forward, and part of the future will be based, a good part of the future will be based on what you are able to do, because we are investing in your idea, in your studies, and in you as an entrepreneur. So it's very important to demonstrate that you are a good bet. It's very critical. Even if you have already built a business, the team is critical for every investor to analyze. So be aware that team is very, very relevant. Another aspect that an investor should consider when analyzing a project in this stage is the possibility of you become the reference of your business, and if there are other study centers, other possible competitors that might find the solution before you, and why they should invest in you and not in other study center or competitors. So it's important also to present the competition, what's going on worldwide, and emphasize your differentiation. Why they should believe that it's better for them to invest in you compared to other study centers in this market. And more than that, why it's better for them to invest in you and not in another startup, which has nothing to do with your segment, has nothing to do with your business, but you are competing by their money. So you need to be able to demonstrate that's a huge opportunity for them, and that you are the correct and right people to be invested on. Those would be critical points for you to present. And I wanted to present the general idea of some points that investors would analyze. And now I'm gonna enter in a detail, in a level of detail, in a deeper level of detail related to the business that you are in right now. So related to specifically to your business, the investor will analyze the risk of patent that you need to create, regulations that your business would be exposed to, and also about the credibility that your institution would have in order to be able to be compliant with the rules established by the institution or government laws and all kinds of stuff like that. So you need to present a good level of detail related to those specific questions on regulations, because in your business it's critical. I know that there are a lot of regulations behind it. I know that study centers would provide you money in order to study a specific point, but when you receive investment from other sources, you have more freedom to work in other aspects, which is what you are seeking. If you are just receiving money from institution in order to develop a specific point, you will be tight on your studies. And I understand that having investment out of this world would make it possible and easier for you to go into more studies and other aspects. It's good for you. However, you need to be careful, because investors would require a very good plan. You cannot make it big in order to not be practical, to make it able to go to the market. So if you stay too long to include those patents or those products in the market in a good period of time, I know that it required a lot of study, it required a lot of research, so it's important to have a certain period of time of study, but we have the perspective of receiving the money back. It's not only a question of impact, but it's also a matter of receiving the investment, receiving the return on investment. So it's also a matter of receiving the return on investment. So we need to be able to identify that it has a good potential, that you are able to build this project and reach the results that you're expecting. It's important to have in mind where you want to be going forward, because I know that these kind of studies might go to other directions going forward, because you might identify things that you cannot see right now, but you need to demonstrate for the investors that you have a goal in mind. You can see at least a small light at the end of the tunnel. It's important to have a direction at least. If during the way, if during the path, if during the studies you reach to other solution, it's okay. But it's important at the beginning to have a goal to seek. Otherwise, it would be a lot of money invested and not much results going forward. And the risk is very high. So it should present a very good sense of reasonability, of direction to seek.
Yes, it is very clear. You gave me very clear explanation, and yes, I understand that the risk is high, and currently there is no product. So
Yeah.
the investors, this is what bothers me, because the investors might say, no, you don't have product, goodbye, that's it. And but of course, to find the cure, for instance, if we manage to patent the thing that we could specifically deliver the particle into any cell, for instance, people working on that to any cell, and for instance, if you have cancer, we could deliver that particle to that cancer cell. We could destroy that cancer with these mechanisms new. So this is one disease. For instance, if you have some other disease, we could deliver that particles into other cells, specifically to that cells, and cure that disease. So if we patent this small thing, the ability to deliver one place or the another place, this mechanism, the people who will try to, for instance, to make a drug will have to use this patent. They will have to use. So if you want to try to treat practically any incurable disease, you will have to use that patent. And this bottleneck will be solved. No, that's my opinion, but my opinion has some background, because I studied this thing for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I look very simple into this problem. You said that I need team. Well, I have team, but what bothered me that this team is not good to accomplish this complicated goal. So what I'm thinking to do is to build much better team. For instance, I have some connections with people who won a Nobel Prize in biology, and so, for instance, if I manage to collect these people, these smart people who might want to work on this delivery problem, we will need very big amount of money. You might ask how much, but the question is there a pathway? Do you know the pathway? For instance, if we will have team, if we have initial plan, only initial, I cannot guarantee that everything would go as it seems, and it might need adjustments. But if we have good team with good initial plan, is it possible to find the investors? Do you have a pathway to investors which could spend billions into this project?
Yeah.
This is...
Yeah, you in order to answer that to you, it's important for you to identify the correct investor. Because in the investor point of view, we need to have a clear path to go and a clear thesis. This is the word. We investors work by thesis. And there are some investors that they are looking at ideas and projects that are in the very early stage, and they are looking to invest a small amount of money that could return a huge amount of money. So in your case, you should look for investors that are playing in green fields. And green fields means that you have an idea, there's no product in the market, there is no other investors investing on your idea yet, and you are trying to get the first investment in order to find a product that will potentially impact billion people. So there are types of investors, and few of them are looking for ideas and projects that are not in place yet. They are in the ideation stage, they are in the research stage, which is your case. Other investors, they are playing the startup world, the early stage startup, which are testing the MVP in the market. Other investors, they are focused on startups that are already in the market with some traction, and we have VCs that invest only in startup, but big startups growing, and etc. So there are investors out there for different type and stages that you can seek for, that you can look for. So depending on what the investor wants, they will position themselves in a different area. So your idea should be presented for investors that are looking for projects in your stage. If you present your idea for VCs, you will lose your time and they will lose their times. Even if the idea is fantastic, even if it has a very good potential, because it's not their thesis. So they need to be aligned. So you need to be able to present the idea for the correct investor. You need to present your startup and project for the investors who are willing to invest in your project in this stage. So there are investors that are in this position of looking for ideas and projects that are in the stage that you are right now.
Okay, I understand, but there is one bad example. What I will show you. Do you know the therapeutic company that was created, Theranos,
No.
by Elizabeth Holmes.
No.
And she promised that company in California was created, and she promised to something with blood. She analyzed blood with a very small drop of blood, and she shows the results. And later it appeared that this technology is not possible, and it was a scam. So that's why this is bad example. But a good point of this case story is that she managed to attract very, very powerful investors with her idea. And the question is, what do you mean the right investor? Because the people who invested, for instance, in her company, they are not practically related to the biology and other things. No, they were not related to the biology, and they practically didn't have the competence, but they invested money in her company, and he managed to raise about, I don't know, $9 billion. Very, very huge amount of money. So what do you mean by right investor? Because in that case, the investors were from very different areas. They just thought that it is very good opportunity, and they invested.
Yeah. Your question is very good, because by saying that you should go to the right investor, it doesn't mean that the investors should have your background or being in your field of work or study. It means that they need to have a thesis that is related to what you're going to present. Otherwise, it would be a waste of time for both sides. So it's important for you to not only to identify if the investors will have the same background of you, but you need to be able to present the idea in a way that he or she will understand what you mean and be able to invest. So in the case that you presented right now, they didn't have the background, and it's not required. So depending on what you want is what you need to look for. If you want money to invest on your idea, you need to seek for people who has the money and are willing to invest in this stage of the idea, in this idea stage. If you want a smart money, let's say, and if you are looking for people who could contribute to your business in a technical way, or in a marketing perspective, in a sales perspective, it's a different approach. So depending on what you need to look for investors that will be willing to help you with your needs. So you might have different, or you might attract different types of investors. You can attract investors who have money only. The only thing that you expected from them is money. And you can also attract investors that could contribute to your startup and idea. And then you need to seek for smart money that will be able, and they will have the willingness to invest their money and time into your idea. So depending on your needs, you need to look for different types of investors. And investors, they need to understand how they can contribute and what they what they need, they can do for the business, and how they could contribute, how they want to contribute, what the expertise that they have, if they want to enter in the business, or if they want only to invest and receive the money after X time. So we have different types of investors, and all of them are around the world. And in order to become an investor, one of the phases that an investor should go through is identifying what is the best thesis for them, and decide which path they want to follow.
Yes, I completely understand what are you saying, and now I just wanted to share a few of my works, so you just for interest for what I managed to publish, so you don't think that I'm some guy who came from nowhere and do not understand. Tells the things that are from science fiction. So these things that I'm telling are not from science fiction, and I will share my few articles. You can, if you're interested, you can read short abstracts, and in particular one article where we together with my co-authors, we proposed a solution to treat diseases that requires continuous administration of drugs. So we proposed an opportunity, then only one administration of drug is necessary and no more administrations would be needed. So the effect of that technology would be very long term. So this is, I shared, I don't know if you have, but I shared in Skype.
Okay.
And now, for instance, okay, let's say from my point of view, I will collect, it might be hard, but for instance, I collect the team and I prepare a good plan, for instance, good plan. So what's next? What we can do together to continue, for instance, in this pathway?
Yeah, let me take a look on the articles. The plan that you have are related to the articles that you send, or it's different?
No. The plan it's not the precisely related. In these articles, I talk about technologies that might solve a particular problem. However, all these techniques which I'm proposing needs one thing. These technologies need to deliver the particles specifically into the cells. And only once this problem is solved, then we could apply these technologies. So now I proposed that technologies, and now, for instance, I said I'm not working currently on this project full time. I'm writing with my colleagues a review where we would like to propose a solution to a delivery problem. So we have one idea, and we're working on that review. And after this review is finished, I would like to move forward.
Okay, so what we could do going forward is, in the investment perspective, it's important for me to understand the potential of the business, if the idea will have a good market to go, if you have a reasonable plan, and what you have considered, the insights that you had, the criteria that you use for your plan, what you are considering. So it's important for me to take a look in all those aspects, and then if I believe that it would make sense for us going forward to establish a partnership, or even be able to invest in the idea based on these perceptions, then we can continue talking to enter in more details. But the first thing that I like to see is kind of a pitch, which you give me a good idea of the plan in a summary, not into too much detail, but would allow me to identify that, okay, it seems reasonable. I believe that I would have a reasonable result afterwards, and the risk against the return, the risk-return analysis would make sense.
Yes, I completely understand this, and the question is, I will be straightforward. Do you have the pathway to the funding which might be needed? For instance, no, it is quite to accomplish this might require a lot of money, and do you have the pathway to that? So, for instance, it's also I will speak with scientists from other fields, and they also would like to know that some investors at least are interested or showed at least some level of interest to this idea. It would be much easier to communicate with these scientists. I know the scientists from my field, but I don't know all of them. And there are very good and powerful scientists from other fields, which I'm not expert, but they are critically important in solving this problem. So it would be much easier to collect that team if I would say that some potential investors are at least interested and have shown some interest. For instance, I don't know. So pretty much it. It would be much easier to collect a greater team.
Yeah, I understand your point, and I agree that would be very much easier to establish and create and develop a team to work on what you need. If you have an investor perspective, or at least interest in by the investors to invest in your idea. And you ask me about the path. How would be the process of creating things or making things happen? And I would suggest you to find investors that would have these characteristics of investing in the stage of ideation, which is not my case. I have a different thesis. My thesis is more on startups that has already created the product in the MVP at least. So I'm not the investor that you are looking for. The first thing that you should consider is to identify those investors and to prepare a pitch deck. You need to provide them information in a way that they could analyze, they could understand, they could easily see that there is a potential. Having a meeting without a document, a PowerPoint or a Word document or a spreadsheet with analysis, it's hard to make them make the investment. but at least visual representation of your idea is important. So at least a document presenting
yes,
the idea.
I completely understand this. This is yes.
And then look for the investors who are in the field of and the stage that are looking for startups and idea in this stage that you are right now. So my suggestion and the pathway that I would suggest would be, first, try to put your idea in PowerPoint, for example, and trying to find the investors that are willing to invest in this stage, in the project in this stage. Does it make sense?
Yes, this makes very good sense, but the question is, would you be interested in helping to find these investors?
It's hard for me to help you finding these investors. Where are you from? Where are you right now?
I'm from Lithuania.
Ukraine, right?
Lithuania.
Ah, Lithuania.
Yes.
And you are in Lithuania right now?
Sorry?
You are in Lithuania right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So, but for instance, if I would like to build that organization, it is this organization, for instance, where we could collect the best scientists into one place to find a solution. I think that it has to be in the United States of America, because they have, they have a critical mass of specialists in one place, and when you collect these specialists from different fields of scientists into one place, there is a very productive way to solve these kinds of problems that I'm trying to solve. So I'm not planning to stay in Lithuania.
I see. Yeah, I believe that it would be the best place to go. In US or China, I believe those who are the countries who are leading the research on this field. I believe one of these two countries would be a good place to look for investors and to implement your idea. And in response to your question related to the help of making it happen and identify these investors, it's not my field of action. I haven't established relationship in this field, so I couldn't contribute much with the identification of the correct investors for you in this field. But a very good tool to try to do it is LinkedIn, definitely, and try to reach organizations that position themselves on this field. You might identify them if you look for specific characteristics of investors and organizations or companies or funds, investment funds that are specialized on this stage. And if you could find also in your field of biology and your field of study, would be also good.
I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, correct me if I'm right or wrong, but people say that it is there is few types of investors. Investors that, for instance, invest a few millions, 100,000, 10,000, the smaller amount, and there are investors which invest larger amounts, for instance, larger than 1 million. And the rules how they operate, people say that are completely different. So this is true or
Yes,
not?
it's totally true. Depending on the type of investors and depending on what the investor wants to become or wants to focus or wants to take risk, there will be a completely different position. So if an investor wants to take a lot of risk and wants to have a very huge return on this risk that he or she have taken, it's one type and one profile of investor. If we have investors that are seeking other risks and other returns, they would have another type of profile as well. So it's very different. It makes completely sense what you've heard. It's true.
Yes, but for instance, these investors who are willing to, for instance, invest smaller amounts, in my opinion, I don't know, you correct me if I'm wrong or right, but they usually, you can find them on LinkedIn, you can find on other social pages, but the investors that invest larger amounts, it is much harder to reach via, for instance, LinkedIn. So what would be the option? If this is true, what would be the pathway? What would be your advice to try to reach these investors?
They will also be in LinkedIn. You will probably need to create a strategy for making a connection, and it takes time. It's not very direct as you could find smaller investors, but they will be there. They will be on LinkedIn as well. You just need to figure out a strategy to reach to them, to create connection, try to talk to people in the segment, try to find a connection, relationship, ask people to present. So that is a way. It's not a simple way, but what I would suggest you to do is try to go through your connections and relationships. Not direct, but secondary or even third connection relation.
Okay, but for instance, I found a connection, yes? And like I said, firstly, it would be easier to get some interest, some level of interest for investor in order to collect a greater team. So there is two ways. There is two options which I can choose. I can try to search now for investors to have very, very early plan, not even without a very early team, not full team, and try to find some interest from very good investors, famous investors, I don't know, in order to attract better scientists. Or I should completely forget this and try to bring the scientists and then go to these investors.
I'm not gonna answer your question. I'm gonna make a question to you. If you were an investor and if you were another scientist, what would you prefer? Both ways, both questions would be, if I'm an investor, I would want to invest in a good team. And then if I'm a scientist, I would say that it's easier to me to say yes to your idea if I have money behind it. The question is, what is easier for you? And what's easier for each one of them to say yes? Would that be easier for an investor to say yes without you having a team? It's easier to do that compared to convince or to tell other scientists to join your team because you have a bigger purpose. You believe that you can cause a huge impact and that his or her studies would help human beings as a whole, and you can make things bigger, and then you can convince investor to invest in your both ideas. What would be easier? And the point here is both sides would want to have the other part first. However, the question is who you are able to convince first with what you have right now.
Yes, understood your point of view.
Choose the one that you can make it possible. If you believe that it's easier for you to talk to other scientists and bring them to the team, start with this way. And then it will make it easier to other investors to invest.
Yes, probably. Yes, I will have to think over this.
Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know. I have nothing more to say. Just I would like to thank you for your time, and if you will have some more questions or if you have some interest later, you're always welcome to write me, call me, and so on. So thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
So if you have more questions or comments, you might share it.
Okay. So good to have talked to you. I hope I could share the investor view, how the investors think, and how investor would make questions for you, would inquire in you, would question, would argue, and this view is important.
Okay, it was very thank you much.
Great.
So see you later. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.